warm as we would like it, but it's getting there. And we continue to the study here in dealing with Daniel. And as a title you see out there, I put the fall of the Chaldean Empire. Chaldea is really what it was. We just come to know it as Babylon. Same empire, just used kind of its real name. And as it comes to the fall of that, and one of the most terrible things that has ever happened in history of the world. We're going to have a drunken party held in the nation of Babylon. And at one time, it was the head of gold, which was Nebuchadnezzar, the Babylonian Empire, was the head of gold. Now, it really has become just dirt, filth, clay. It's going down. It turned kind of rotten on its foundation. It changed from what originally Nebuchadnezzar had made for it to do and what God used Nebuchadnezzar for. But now just begin a little bit of history now. The empire began in 607 BC. It's been a while since we mentioned this. Nabopolassar, the father of Nebuchadnezzar. He was a great man. He made his sons work hard. He had two sons. He made them work hard. We know more about Nebuchadnezzar than we do his brother. He got the clans together. There were 5 different clans that he merged together and started the empire. Now, he went up at the Battle of Carchemish, one of the well-known battles in history, about 607 BC. The Assyrians had been the ruler of the world. They've been a ruler of the world for approximately about 200 years. And so now they're getting ready to battle the Babylonian Empire. Even though they had help from Egypt at the time, Necho Pharaoh in Egypt, they were defeated soundly. And the Assyrian Empire never came back to power. Now the Assyrian Empire, just a little bit, they took the 10 northern tribes of Israel captive. That's the empire that was in charge, or ruling the world at that time. But Nabopolassar defeated him with his son. Nebuchadnezzar was with him. Of course, that's a great day in history now. Nebuchadnezzar was there too. The father died 2 years after that battle, and Nebuchadnezzar had to go back and solidify his empire to be king. Then, like I say, then Nebuchadnezzar, after going back 605 BC, he rules from 605 BC to 562 BC. He became a believer. We talked about that last week. We talked about his, and we read his salvation track that went out, and thousands were saved, maybe even millions. Now, he was also a great man. It's not, it's not in order, Daniel, and that's why things kind of get out of kilter, but it is not also like the book of Revelation. It is not in chronological order. So, but the Holy Spirit, put it where it wanted to be in the Bible, and we know that, and we can understand better now what we will study tonight. Now, Nebuchadnezzar, he built great cities. He in the world, he took and it was such a great city and a great wall. Talked how big it was, and could have had chariots going both ways, about 4 chariots, huge. Now, it took 2 years for the Persian Empire to break in under General Gobryas. He was a great general. He seemed to be very smart, but it took him 2 years to actually defeat the Chaldean or Babylonian Empire. Now, here's some of the kings that was just there after Nebuchadnezzar died in 562 BC. You had Evil Marduk. It's M-E-L, but they pronounce it Evil Marduk. Now, he was a very poor ruler. He lasted about 2 years, 562 to 560. All this can be verified through history. If I turned that one chart back on the backside and showed it to you, all this can be verified through history. People say it didn't happen, but it did, because we now know by history that he was there. And the only reason he really ruled was because he married one of Nebuchadnezzar's daughters, and that was one way to gain power, is to marry into the family, just like you marry into money families or senators or congressmen or whatever, and you end up out there, or even great singers. You see some of the singers' sons or daughters get out there, and they're accepted in acting or singing. So he married Nebuchadnezzar's daughter. Now his brother-in-law killed him so that he could actually save the empire. He really wasn't very good at all. And he was destroying the empire. And then we have Neal-Glasser. He came. Now, he was from 560 to 556 BC. He was a better man. He was an older man. He also was in charge because he married one of Nebuchadnezzar's daughters. Can you get my drink? How do you get there? Nebuchadnezzar's daughters. So he was there, and they weren't too good either. So then we have one that's called Murdoch. Labor-shaped Murdoch. Now, Murdoch, he was really terrible. He only lasted 3 months. That's all he lasted in that empire. They got rid of him very quick because he wasn't a very good king at all. Then came Nabonidus, 556 to 550 BC. In fact, actually, Marduk, I'm sorry, his name is Marduk, not Murdoch. Marduk. A lot of history books don't even throw him in there because he only lasted 3 months. But anyway, so Nabonidus from 556 to 550 BC, he was a great man, and he was very smart. You wouldn't call him a genius, but he was pretty smart. And he saw the empire was starting to fail around him. So for about 3 years, he tried to solidify the empire, tried to keep it together. That's going on. And he realized that he couldn't do it. There was just no way he was going to keep this empire together. And it was so he went to a better place, basically. He kind of copped out. He went to northern Arabia, to a place called Tema, T-E-M-A. And there he took a lot of his forces from Babylon with him because he saw the Medes and the Persians coming together. So he did take most of that army with him there. And of course, he saw the Persians and the Medes coming from northern Mesopotamia. Now, we know that is Mesa means middle, Batamia means between the rivers, between the Tigris and Euphrates River. But he left his really no good son in charge of the empire. And that brings us down to Belshazzar, 550 BC to 539 BC. I mentioned before, I think all empires fail. And you can see that empires are falling apart. When I read these empires, I wonder where we are. And you're going to see here in a little minute, I'll mention it again. Where are we in it? We're losing our prestige in the world. Our military isn't as strong as it used to be. Our economy's a mess. Inflation. So where are we falling in here? Do we look like Babylon and the different kings that didn't do any good because the empire was falling apart anyway? So we see there's a lot of resemblance of what happens to other empires that happened to these too. The same thing happened even in Rome. Rome messed up, went broke basically for its money, and I'm not going to get into all that right now. But they had problems there too in trying to pay for everything as a socialist society basically, and they ran broke. But we see that happen. Now he left his grand Belshazzar, 550 to 539, ruled about a little over 10 years. You count backwards, don't forget. And he was the grandson of Nebuchadnezzar. And a lot of historians say he was a blot on history. In fact, a lot of historians wouldn't even mention his name. His mother was Nitrocris. Seems like maybe she was a born-again believer. We see her again later on because she knew Daniel. And she understood Daniel, and see later on that she told him to get Daniel to come in there, as we'll talk about the next couple of weeks. Now, there were 4 great areas or empires, whatever you want to say, of influence at that time. First, you had the Medo-Persian Empire, the Chaldean or Babylon Empire. You had Egypt, wasn't real strong then, and then you had Lydia, not Libya, but Lydia, another empire. Now, Cyrus the Great was the Mede, and he's starting to take power now. He is going to conquer Lydia first. Now, it used to be, he says he conquered Media. Media was what its name was when he merged it is why we have the Medo-Persian Empire. Media became the Medio when he conquered it. And then after he brought all that together, and for 2 years he battles Nabonidus, the Babylonian Empire. And while this battle is going on, that he's over there in Tema, northern Arabia, the battle is going on, and his no-good son throws one of the biggest parties ever staged in the world. And a general of the Medo-Persian Empire named Gobryas, he is the one who confronts Nabonidus for 2 years. Because remember, he brought a lot of the Babylonian Empire with it, army with him. He had most of it. There wasn't much left in Babylon itself. And they will come down to Babylon. Now, no one could break down that wall because it was so big. But there was a river that ran through it, the Euphrates, underneath the wall. Because that went right through the city, is where they got their water from. And so, when Gobryas got there, and you saw the river going there, came down to the city, he planned on how to divert the river, the water, and dry it up. Now, what these guards were doing, I have no idea. But I think we have an idea when we get to the verses here in a few minutes. And maybe that was drawing their attention. Why they couldn't see it, I don't know. But in the night, they came in through that dry riverbed that they diverted and made it go somewhere else. Now, over in the largest palace that we have ever found in the world, this is the largest palace. It held about 10,000 people. And Belshazzar will fill it with 10,000 and 1,000 lords of his. Now, this is the last fling, or the last party of the Babylonian Empire. It just isn't going to last. This is it. Now, in the same palace, in the same room, 200 years later, after the Medo-Persian Empire, Alexander the Great, after he conquers the whole world, he comes back, doesn't have anything to do, and to the same palace, and he's going to have another banquet. And he's going to drink and drink and drink. And as a result of the drunken party in the same palace, he's going to die at the age of 33. He just got bored. He just got discouraged because he'd conquered the world and there was nothing left out there for him to do. And he drank himself to death, which we know alcohol does it. Now, that's one thing we used to control drugs a lot more, but now we're bringing in marijuana, and some cities have recreation marijuana, and even our state here, we got medical marijuana, and they want to make recreation marijuana. A lot of people get from there to other drugs. They say it's not a gateway drug, but we see what's happening. And we've kind of tried to control all that and all the other stuff, heroin and everything, and we've done fairly, I guess, a halfway good job, but we've never conquered liquor. Liquor's everywhere. It's advertised everywhere, and we have alcoholics all over the place. We don't even hear much about it anymore. But we have a lot of alcoholics in our society today. We haven't really controlled that at all. And it eats your liver up. And so Alexander died because he just drank too much. So let's look at the verses now that gave you a little bit of history to bring us up to date so you can understand what we're going to study. Now Belshazzar the king made a great feast of 1,000 of his lords and drank wine before the thousands. Now, I think that's also in Esther 1:3. Now the king, he is not on most of the list of the kings of Babylon. And this is where the liberals say, well, this never happened. He was never a king. And he went. Now, Xenophon was a historian at this time. Now, evidently, he did not like, or he hated Belshazzar. Okay, he was not a good king. He hated him. And when historians, and Herodias wrote about him too, but Herodias didn't use their names because they didn't like him. They would not use his name. They would write about the incident, but they never would mention the name because they hated him so much. That's what happens to the historians. So, in 1856, a long time ago, Sir Rawlinson an Englishman, he was digging over there, and he found the palace in Babylon. And he also found tablets which had the name Belshazzar. Well, you said, that's not Belshazzar. In Chaldean, it is Belshazzar. That's what it means. And he found dozens of other tablets too. So what the Bible wrote in verse 1, again, Belshazzar the king. Now, I'll mention later, they co-reigned in those days. He was off that way, left it there, and he would be called a king with the other, but he's co-reigning with his dad, even though his dad was over Tema in North Arabia with the money and most of the army. He's kind of co-reigned, so he did. So the Bible's not that. The Bible's true in what it says about the Belshazzar, and we found all that out later after everybody said it wasn't true. Now, in the wild party, there was great walls in the palace there, in that room around there. And now he was a hunter. So after hunting, he would come back and he would write about his hunt on the wall. I don't know if they taxidermied anything. Maybe could have, but basically it's writing on the wall. And that's what these tablets talk to us. And one of the tablets that was out there that Sir Rollins did, it talked about how great a hunter he was. But this man, one of his lords, actually bagged his limit before he did. And when he found out about it, he went over and killed that man. That's how bad he was. And so they have a saying on one of the tablets, has the king bagged his limit yet? And there was another one that some of the girls are dancing around there said to this guy, man, look how good looking this guy is. Maybe it was a Rock Hudson or something, I don't know. But the king didn't like it, and he went over there and killed that man too. So it was also on a tablet said to his wife, don't mention my name, it's not worth it. Belshazzar was not good. And it just, and his name was Gadatus, Gadatus. I guess that's how you pronounce it. And so Belshazzar just was not a good king. And he was drunk at the time when he cut the man up. So we want to know we're doing it. Why all this? To show you that actually a mad, drunk man was on the throne, and God wasn't going to let him stay there much longer. It just wasn't going to happen. He was ruled by a drunk in that verse. Belshazzar the king made a great feast to the 1,000 of his lords, and drank wine before the thousands. He had all this thing. He had that place probably full of those people because he had such an ego. Now, in verse 2, Belshazzar, while he tasted the wine, commanded to bring the golden and silver vessels which his father Nebuchadnezzar, grandfather, you need to read it that way because this is his grandfather, had taken out of the temple which was in Jerusalem, that the king and his princes and his wives and his concubines might drink therein. So you can see there's a lot of people there. Now in 586, when Nebuchadnezzar, on his third visit to Jerusalem, because he got upset with his grandfather, took all those bowls out of there. Now the golden bowls and every other article spoke of Jesus Christ. Now a young Jewish boy back then would have been talked in and told about these bowls. Now these bowls were where the blood would be taken out, and it would be sprinkled on the Ark of the Covenant for the forgiveness of sin. See, and so they drank from these vessels, actually blaspheming God for what they used to do for the offering. It would be like taking the use of the Lord's Supper and filling it up with wine and passing it around for you to get drunk on. And we know in Corinthians, people ate and did get drunk and they died. So he was blaspheming God because of these bowls that were used in what God told him to do for forgiveness of sin. They would put it in these golden bowls. And they were getting ready to use him. They were filling them up. And what a blasphemy it was. And then we look at verse 3. Then they brought the golden vessels that were taken out of the temple of the house of God, which was at Jerusalem, and the king and his princes and his wives and his concubines drank in them. Now it doesn't mention the silver ones. Maybe the guys didn't bring in the silver ones. We just don't know. But these golden vessels. Now he was saying two things. I don't believe in Christ as did my grandfather. He knew the track. He knew what Nebuchadnezzar said, but he rejected it. He says, I don't believe in it. I don't care about it. I don't accept the message of that salvation track that my grandfather did. I don't believe in it. This is a man rejecting Jesus Christ. And they drank from the golden vessels. You know, they had no respect for God. Where are we today in our own country? Do we have respect for God in our country today? Did you know that there's more liquor in Washington, D.C. than any other city in the United States in a day drank? Look at what we're doing. And we wonder sometimes, well, how patient is God? He's awful patient with us. Doesn't this sound similar to our nation today? We say we don't want to believe. Atheism is rising. Church attendance is going out. In fact, today, some kids didn't even know certain basic things. We teach kids in school, and some of them aren't even taught even the basic stories in the Bible, the truths that God has said. When I think, what was the question that she was asked on Family Feud? Oh. I can't remember, but they should have given other answers, but they didn't. Oh, what is heaven going to be like? And a lot of people that gave the most answers to say on Facebook, oh, we're going to have cars, and we're going to have new bodies, and we're going to have new clothes, and where did they get this stuff? And that became the most answer on Family Feud. We have no respect for them. Look at our churches today. Some of them look like you're in a concert. There's not even crosses in them. They're black, they're darkened, and bands and everything. And what are we doing today? Look a little bit like this party that Belshazzar's throwing. Just a good time. Let's just go on. And we're doing it. So number 4. They drank wine, the last verse, and praised the gods of gold and of silver, of brass, of iron, of wood, and of stone. References of Psalms 115:4, 135:15, Revelation 9:20. They were worshiping the gods of the Babylonian Empire, using God's vessels that he set apart. First one they did that was Marduk. Now this was the Chaldean or Babylonian equivalent to Zeus, the Greek. He was the head god, or like Jupiter, that was the Roman head god. But this is what he was. Marduk, the god of the pantheons of gods. They had statues of them, and they were going around with them. Now, I'm not going to tell you everything they did. It's just too graphic to get all that stuff. And when they were worshiping God, it was really a lot. It was a lot of sexual immorality, everything you could think of. And I think of today, of all the immorality and sexual acts and things that we accept today. And you wonder, the Babylonian Empire ended because of this. Where are we at? I mean, they did everything under the sun. I just put it that way. All the immorality that you could even think of, they did. Or dancing around this idol. And then they had the other one that was called Nebu or Nebo. Either way. And this was the education god. Isn't that interesting? Boy, do we worship education today. You know, I have a doctorate's degree because I was put down that I didn't have enough education when I came into ministry. And so I just sat down and said, okay, I just got out of high school, okay? And I took a few courses when I was coming close to retirement in the Air Force because I thought I wanted to be an accountant, so I was getting a business degree. But I never wanted to go back to school. But we worship even in the ministry degrees so much. I had to go back and get one. And then it just depends on what school you got it from, whether it was a good one or not for them. I don't care. It can't take my doctorate away from me anyway. But that's what it was. And they did the same thing. They would go from statue to statue and repeat what they did around Marduk. Then they had the god of Nagal. Now, I guess they should have been worshiping this one because you know what this god was? It was a god of war. Reminds me of some of our senators we have out there, the warmongers that we have up in our Congress. And even in our news media, some of them. And they needed to bow down to this one because the Medes and the Persians were about to come in and end that empire. General Gobryas had already defeated Nabonidus, and he was arrested. And now he's at the walls of the Babylonian Empire. He's ready to crack it down. The other day, our president talked about a one world order. And right now, the strongest country we got out there, or empire, is China. What's going to happen? Are we going to come under that fourth cycle of discipline? Not quite the fifth, where a country is ruled by its enemy, but it still has its part of its freedom. But it's destroyed under the fifth, like the 70 AD when Jerusalem was destroyed. What's going to happen to us? Are we sitting in that part? Are we starting to go downhill? But the Persians are coming. And I don't know, maybe we need to look up. We have a war going on that I don't know. Could turn into something really terrible. And people want us to get into that war. And we need to stay out of it. Because it's not a good one. Then the last one is Ishtar. You probably know it more on the rate of the god of Venus, the god of love. Immoral acts again. Going all over the country, doing all these immoral acts and what's going on around these things, all worshiping that. If we notice, we worship our pleasure, we worship our things, we have our own idols. We don't call them this, but they're there. Hey, we're worshiping our sex right now. We're worshiping all of our immorality acts. Everything that God said is wrong, we are throwing out there. We're honoring the people. We're lifting them up. And what are we doing even with our kids? This thing may be deleted. You may never hear it by the time Facebook gets done with it. I don't know. But our society is getting more immoral and more every day. We call living together cohabitation now. Nice word, same thing. Not married. We have very few people. Marriages are going down in our society. What are we doing? I heard as Answers in Genesis said 16% of our teenagers today identify with some form of either bisexual, homosexuals, lesbian, whatever. Transgender, it's just increasing. And what do we want God to do? We need to pray for this nation, pray for the salvation, pray for us to get back to God. You know, people say, well, the Old Testament doesn't apply. Well, it does. Some of God's laws and all of the sacrifices and everything that we do, when you read that, there's some things they had to do. God's moral law has still stood. There's nothing changed God's moral law. Read Romans chapter 1. Read what Jesus said about things. It hasn't changed. We've changed it for our own benefit, and we have built our own gods. We just don't call them Marduk, Nebo, Nagar, or Ishtar, or Venus, but we do everything that they did with them, and it was moral, and God ended that. Society says, no, that is not going to happen. So pray for our nation. That's where we're going. And we need to be very careful in what's happening. Christians need to be praying. Let me pray. Father, again, we just thank you for this time that you've given us, Lord. We thank you for these words. And maybe we look at Babylon and, Father, see what was going on there and what was happening in the party, and you just said it isn't going to happen any longer. They were running away from you since Nebuchadnezzar left and all these other kings came and the country started going down. We pray for that because it looks like that's what's happening to us too, in the United States. And so, Father, we just lift all them up to you and pray for the salvation of our country, our leadership. And Lord, just help us to see. Open the church's eyes. Let the people see so they may get out and witness to open up other people's eyes to the salvation they need in you. For in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.